So today, actually, what I wanted to do is just give you a flavor of not necessarily what the SBIR is or the SBIR program, but what it would take for a company to actually do. And are you ready for it? Kind of a feeling. And then what we could do is probably we could do more of these, and then we could get into different phases, right? And learn a little bit more as we move forward in the process of learning about the SBIR. So here is, everybody is in the process of deciding, is this something that I should apply for? Just similar to the ACI, and what it would take, am I good enough? And I have to thank Susan. She helped me with the title of the presentation, because otherwise my title would just be like SBIR, government funding, or something like that. So let's see. Can I take the screen? And then if you want to, I can then give the presentation to Anita, and she can share it with you guys. So let's see, where do I have it? It would be on, let me see. I think this is the one that I would share. So do you see the presentation?
Yes, we do. Looking good. You
do? Okay, good. So, so the title of the presentation is Who's Buried in the Grant's Tomb? And basically the idea here is I'm going to try to give it maybe a little bit of an Egyptian theme to this, to see if I can be, for a change, a little entertaining and not too boring. So we're going to focus on trying to keep out of the companies and the folks, just not to bury themselves, and if you do, what would it take to get out? A little bit about myself. So is this going or not? There. Okay, so my company name is called OpSpot. The idea here is for opportunity spot. So one of the things that I find myself very good is in identifying opportunities or helping you create opportunities. And so that's where the name came from. I'm a systems engineer by training. I got my bachelor's and master's from the University of Arizona. And I also have a computer science background from the University of Costa Rica, because that's where I was living before I came here. So I've been able and fortunate, quote unquote, to start up several businesses in different fields, from manufacturing to biomedical and semiconductor industries. And so I've also been, and I am, a consultant today. And I've been doing this for over 20 years for either my own businesses or other startup businesses. And I'm focusing on startups and small businesses where I think I can make the most impact. And I've got over 15 years of experience with the SBIR STTR program and applying for other types of government funding. And I got involved in the SBIR many years ago, and I had met Anita and other folks at the Tech Park, because it was very opportunistic for me to join a company that was also a startup, and they were doing a medical device for drug delivery system. And I was looking at what is the next thing I could do. And so we started up, we applied for an SBIR with the Army. I was the principal investigator. I'd never done such a thing in my entire life, but what the heck, why not? And we won. So the rest is history. I'm here today. So where I like to also help companies is with their commercialization strategies. So let's take you to Egypt. A couple of years ago, I was almost around this time, it was November 2018, we went to Egypt. And there is a valley called the Valley of the Kings. And coincidentally, on that valley, they actually bury all the famous Egyptian, or most of the famous Egyptian kings and queens are buried in that area. So I figured we'd make an analogy to the SBIR or the government funding, or for that matter, any of the small businesses dilemma or issue that you encountered, the valley of death. And so how can we avoid being buried in a tomb in this valley of death? And so the valley of death essentially is you start without anything, you start building your business, you start getting some funding, and then you win a little bit of money, but then you don't know how to cross over to use that money to develop your innovation and grow your company, leveraging the funds that someone else, in this case, the government, has given you. And so what happens is a lot of businesses just get stuck there, like in a mud pile, and you fall into this valley of death. And how do you get out? How do you get your next funding? Is it going to be a long time where you're basically not going to be able to afford all the expenses and the finances of running your business? And the idea here is how can you leverage what the tech part and the UACI is given, leverage subject matter experts like Susan, myself, Devin, and Joyce to get you out of here, or to prevent, or, in the case, maybe make this gap a little bit smaller. So we can help. And my expertise, as I mentioned before, comes with the SBIR and STTR program, and helping you manage it, as well as consulting through the process, and also with the commercialization strategies. So we become essentially like a bridge of information and wealth and assistance and mentoring and coaching to get you out of there, or if possible, avoid getting you in there, right? So what will it take for you to go through the process of going for an SBIR? Well, it will take a lot of teamwork and a lot of effort, right? It's sort of like in this picture here, where you're essentially slave to the process, and you have to pull and carry all these huge blocks, and it's not an easy process. I'm not going to come here and tell you that this is something easy to do, because it's not. So what will you need, and what is required for you as a small business, or essentially a client? What will it take for you to be able to do this? So first of all, you're going to have a lot of patience, and you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to start with that, because it's not going to be easy. You've got to be able to follow detailed and complex instructions from both the solicitation, but as well as if you're working with us, you've got to listen to us, and you've got to follow our direction and try to do it as best as possible as you can. You've got to be able to write, and you've got to be able to write it succinctly, because in most of the cases, just like you're going right now through the process of doing the ACI application, they give you very limited real estate, essentially. Here you have a few pages for the ACI. In the proposals, depends on what solicitation you're responding to, you might have to do 5 pages, or at most 10, 20 pages, right? So how do you put all your information together in the best way possible so that you do it in a succinct document? An understanding of the scientific method is a must, because essentially you're coming on with your innovation with a basic or one or more hypotheses, and you've got to be able to prove your hypotheses, and you've got to be able to prove it basically with a scientific method approach, where you've got your hypotheses translates into task and objectives, that translates into an approach through tasks. Conducting literature review, find out what is out there. Do you think that you really have an innovation that's going to be funded? Has someone else done it? What's the state of the art? You need to understand all that. You have to have the ability to network with others. You're not going to be able to do this alone. And in most cases, the small businesses are not just going to all by themselves going to be able to create a product without the help and collaboration and networking with others. Usually you've got a partner. You've got to be able to manage a complex schedule. You're not alone. You have your family, you've got possibly work, you might be doing this part-time, and you've got to be able to go through the proposal preparation. And it's going to be complicated and it will be lengthy in time. So you've got to be able to manage a complex schedule. You've got to have an understanding, basic understanding of finances, because you've got to be able to submit a budget with your proposal. Even on the ACI, you've got to be able to project how much you're going to be making a few years. And it's got to be compelling. It doesn't have to be exact science, but it's got to make sense. So thankfully, you've got, through your subject matter experts here, someone who can help you with that as well. You've got to have the ability to understand what other people are telling you and what they're asking, and take that into account. And be prepared to spend at least 10 to 15 hours each week for the next 10 to 12 weeks. That's after a solicitation comes out. And you've also going to have ambition and hope, right? Because otherwise you're not going to be able to be motivated enough to do this. So are you eligible? That's the next question. And in the solicitations, they're going to give you some eligibility criteria. But I'm going to talk about other stuff that usually does not come out in writing in these solicitations. So first of all, why are you doing this? And I think there's, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. What's that book called The Why? Is that by Simon Sinek? Read that book. It'll help you understand why it is important to have a motivation. That's going to be driving you, and it's going to be driving your team and your company.
It's called Start with Why.
Start with the why, yes.
Yes, I'm putting it.
That's why I'm starting with the why and your motivation right from the start. That's what moves you. And what best describes your company? Are you a foreign company? How many employees do you have? Are you for profit? If you're mostly owned by foreign entities or foreign employees or not US people, you're not eligible. So keep that into consideration. So are you going to be the principal investigator when you're writing this proposal, or even, if you win? Are you qualified? Right? And qualification not necessarily means that you have to have a PhD in the subject matter. You have to be a well-rounded individual that will be able to manage the project, will be able to understand what it is that you're developing, and for the most part, being able to be responsible for the success of the project. So ask yourself that, or are you going to need someone else to do it? Who owns the company? That's an important thing. Is it owned by venture capitalists? There's rules for these kind of things. Is it owned by foreign people? Where's the research going to be conducted? Under the SBI or STTR, it has to be conducted in the United States. So it's not like you can subcontract people or have key individuals that are out of the country. If so, you have to get it justified and pre-approved. And what's your citizenship status? It goes back to that. So are you authorized to work in the United States? If so, what kind of visa? And where does your principal investigator work? And this is very important. Under the SBIR, the principal investigator has to be primarily employed by the company that's going to get the award. And each agency defines principal location of work differently. So you need to read the restrictions and understand, and you in doubt, ask. So the for the most part, the easiest definition is 51% or more employed by the company getting the award. So it's not like you can be a full-time employee at Ventana and work on this part-time as a PI. It doesn't work. But you can employ someone who's freelancing from Ventana on a part-time basis. That's a different story, but they're not your principal investigator. Do you have experience with advanced technologies? And that's important because your innovation is not going to be just something simple. Usually you're a technology company for the most part. And so be aware that at least you or part of your team has to understand advanced and complex technologies. Do you understand about financial record keeping? Who's going to be doing that for you? Under phase 1 SBIRs-TTR, the government's not very strict in looking at your finances. But if you're going to apply for phase 2, or if before you get the phase 2 award, they're going to come and audit your company. So the best thing you can do is start right now putting together or structuring your company correctly for managing your finances. Whether you win an SBIR or not, it's going to be important for you to do that anyways. So structure it from the very beginning correctly, know how to keep records, have procedures in place, all that good stuff, have a good accounting system, and of course a good accountant. And are you willing to put in the time? We mentioned 10 to 15 hours a week for at least 10 weeks. And this one's very important. Everybody thinks they have the best solution in the world and they're solving everything, and you might. But when you respond to a solicitation, make sure that you are responsive to the solicitation's needs, right? In the case of maybe some of the grants like NSF, they have open topics, but then you still need to be responsive to someone's need. There has to be original need. So are you being responsive to that? So here I've got a couple of cartoons. My son did these for me, so I'm pretty proud of him for doing these for me. He did them over his lunch break. He's a really good cartoonist, and he doesn't do that for a living. But in this case, here's a case where you were asked to do a pyramid, you did it, but you didn't put it correctly. You built it upside down, and you still did it wrong. So here people are arguing, and people are not happy. In the case of a proposal, most likely it's going to be unresponsive, and you're not going to get an award. Or in the case of this other picture, they built how are you going to get your mummies back into the pyramid, right? Because usually that's where the tombs are, inside pyramids or inside holes. And hey, if I'm not wowed, I might not even read your proposal. So it's like, have you seen that movie? What was it with Tom Cruise that the girlfriend said, "You had me at hello"? It's the same thing here. If on the first page I'm unimpressed, I don't understand what you're responding to, what your innovation is, what your product and solution is, usually you won't get me to spend much more time on the rest of the proposal. So make sure that you wow your customer in your proposal all the way and tell your story. Storytelling is the best way to wow, and images, pictures. I'm almost done. So how do you get started? There's a whole bunch of registrations, and one that I did not put in here is the DUNS. You start with your DUNS and with your federal tax ID, and then you go through all the rest. Each government agency has different instructions. So make sure that you read and find out what other sites you're going to have to register. These take time, right? So if you don't do it early, you're going to miss the boat. So if you're thinking of submitting something on September and you haven't done your SAM.gov application, you're probably not going to be able to submit anything by September. And familiarize yourself after you have all your registration with the submission sites. What do they want? And don't wait till the day is due to fill in this information, because it's mostly admin stuff and it might take you hours to do it. So get that done ahead of time. You could do that early before you press the submit button. So start doing that as soon as you decided that you're gonna respond to a solicitation. Read all the solicitation. Can't stress that enough. And they change them every year. So you think you know how to respond to a DoD Army proposal, next year will be different. So read it again. Start early, like I said. Know exactly the due date and the time. Is it going to be 5 p.m. Eastern, or is it going to be 5 p.m. local? Or sometimes you think that last year it was at 5 p.m. Eastern. This time it's going to be 12 a.m. of that day. So you actually have to submit the previous day. Sometimes it's 7 a.m. So don't do that. Don't spend the whole night before you submit, because believe me, you'll make mistakes. Submit early. I like to push people so that they submit at least 2 days ahead. So I can be a pain. And make sure you have all your resources. One of our subject matter experts can also help put together the right team. So leverage her with that. And so the PI, don't wait till the end to find someone. And usually your PI will also help with the technical content of your proposal. They know what they're doing. And some agencies let you talk to the topic authors first. So as soon as the solicitation comes out, or in the case like of NASA, once it comes out, you can't talk to them. So it's too late. But you should know what's coming out beforehand. So talk to the NASA folks before. In the case of the DoD, you can talk to them the first half of after the solicitation's out. Talk to them, understand why they put out this topic. Because then when you're writing your proposal and you're creating that story, you're answering to their why, right? Not your why, their why. And so you need to understand that. And sometimes the best way to understand the motivation from these topic authors is to talk to them. And not necessarily with an email, but to talk to them. Because they'll tell you things either in person or on a phone call that they normally would not tell you over answering emails. And then each of the agencies is different. So you'll need to learn how to respond to each of them differently. So familiarize with them and just be aware. And let's see. Understand also how they evaluate and the evaluation criteria, because the reviewers will follow that evaluation criteria exactly, right? As we review those proposals, we have the list of things that we have to look for. So on the solicitation, it will tell you what that review criteria is. So familiarize with that, as well as what are the objectives of the topic you're responding to. And a lot of times people fail to really know how to describe that innovation. And I think that here's where also Susan can come in, or any of us. If we don't understand what your innovation is and kind of have a picture or understanding of, you know, what it is, either in a picture or a description of the service, if we don't understand it from the get-go, again, the reviewer will be turned off and you might not even be responsive to that solicitation topic. The best way for me to understand what it is you're going to be doing and who the stakeholders are is to have an image. And if I look at that image and I get it, then I know that you're on the right track. And the sooner you can have that description with that image, the better. You need a qualified team. You need a really good commercialization strategy, not for NIH phase 1. NIH requires it for phase 2, but NIH, as reviewers, we also look, do they know the market? Do they know their customer? Do they know what the product is? And is there a need? We still look for those things. And so you have to figure out how to embed it into your proposal, usually in the first page of the specific aims, in the first pages of the research strategy. So you put in a few sentences to let the reviewer know about that. Always know your customer, understand your market opportunity, get letters of support. And you need to have a comprehensive budget with a good budget justification. And where it gets really tricky is the difference between direct and indirect. So with the help of our subject matter experts, you're going to be able to get assistance with that as well before you submit your proposal. And then there's also, most of the agencies let you put in addition to the max, you can request additional funds for technical and business assistance, and that can get you to pay for more consulting service for your commercialization strategy, both on phase 1 and phase 2. Not all the agencies do it, but if there is any there that provide that, take it, right? Because it'll help you increase your chances of winning the next phase or transitioning your technology. And so I can also help with that. So I'm putting a plug in for me. And yeah, book time, please. We're here to help you. So take advantage of being a client of UACI and book time with us. And that's it.